Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Akron, Ohio native jazz guitarist and composer Dan Wilson. We covered his life and music and his new 2021 CD, Vessels of Wood and Earth. He welcomed an all-star cast on the album like Christian Sands and Jeff Tain Watts. He spent a majority of his youth within the community church, and that is where his musical path began. His jazz guitar influences were the likes of Wes Montgomery, Charlie Christian, Joe Pass, and George Benson, and his musical identity has been shaped by everything from gospel and blues to traditional jazz, hip-hop, and horn players like Sonny Rollins and Joe Henderson. His path and ascension up the jazz charts has been impressive. Get to know him.
That's exactly what it is, a shuffle.
That's all it is. Well, hey, you know, every time I talk to jazz musicians, I'm always one of the top answers for why they enjoy what they do is because it's almost infinite. There's a myriad of possibilities, and I feel like that doing radio. It's like I'm always running into cats that I don't know about. You're one of them. I really dig what you put out, so it's a pleasure to talk to you. Yeah, you bet.
I appreciate it.
So, Vessels of Wood and Earth come out during a very strange time on planet Earth. We have a pandemic. We have all of these things that are going on around us. Talk to me about the timing of this release and how you feel about it.
It's funny, man. You know, I heard a quote from somebody that says, it says, God giggles when man makes plans, you know. So, we recorded this in June of 2019. And I was like, 2020 is going to be the year. That's it. And bam, COVID hit. But it almost, you know, it was almost kind of poetic how it happened because for this album to be released during this time, you know, with the message of the record, it kind of jives with the message of the record, you know, the message of the title at least, you know. Just kind of talking about how, like these foundational elements, matter more than surface than what's on the surface. You know what I mean?
That's the name of the game here. Is that, you know, we're in the middle of something we can't control, and you just got to do the best you can. So ultimately, I know what I got from this album. It was a very enjoyable audio experience. I mean, I love driving around listening to music, and I have a CD player, which is kind of alien to some of the younger generations. But watching the world go by and feeling the music always makes more sense to me. So my question to you is, what do you hope the listener gets from this experience, this album?
I feel like, you know, I'm kind of a simple man, you know, so I feel like, you know, music was created to be pleasing to the ear, right? So that's always my number one goal. Like all the technical things and all the technical little details, you know, that's only for myself and my fellow musicians, you know. So if people can get a positive gut reaction from this album, then that'll make me feel like I succeeded.
Right on. Well, you know, kind of sticking to the pandemic before we get into your life more specifically in jazz. You know, this has been a year of self-reflection. What did you learn about yourself that you may not have discovered, or what came into focus for you more that you just didn't expect?
Probably the fact that I actually enjoy teaching. That was actually kind of a shock for me, you know, just having to really go back to kind of the foundational elements of my playing and have to explain it to other people because, you know, we're not on the road. So that was one of the things. And another one is probably time management. You know, now that I have a young child during this time, you know, I have to kind of schedule my practice time. So it really caused me to be a lot more focused and kind of driven than I was before, you know, when I had just kind of all the time in the world. And
then one other thing before we depart the album, I want to know, you know, you were with Jeff Tain Watts and Christian Sands. You had a wonderful lineup of cats. What was that like to be around such musicians?
Man, you know, I've always centered my my concepts around drummers. So because I'm kind of drums are my first instrument. So I've been a fan of Tain for years, and It's that, it's that kind of dichotomy that younger musicians experience when they play with their heroes. It's like you kind of have to kind of get over the shock very quickly. Like you kind of have to go between being a fan and a collaborator. And that's kind of a strange place to be in at first. Thankfully, Tain has a really cheerful personality. He's always laughing and joking, so it makes you kind of loosen up, right? Because it's go time. As soon as you count it off, it's no holds bars. So that was really great. And I've known Christian fans for a while now, so we're like homies. So that was great. It was just a really nice vibe in the studio.
There was a veteran Latin jazz cat years ago that kind of stopped me in my tracks and said, you know what musician Miles Davis picked first and foremost in every one of his bands? And I was like, I have no idea. He said he picked the drummer first. Blew me away. I had no idea. That was the foundation. Yeah, isn't that wild?
No kidding.
Yeah,
that's I mean,
so when you said that, yeah, no, really, yeah. And so when you said that, I had this flashback because I was blown away, and he knew Miles. He played with him, so he knew how he rolled, and I was like, wow, you definitely learn something new every day, Yeah,
man. I feel like, even in music education, when like in I went to undergrad and grad school for music, so, and I always noticed that when they wanted to teach harmony, everybody went to the piano because the harmony is all laid out there in front of you, and it's really easy to understand. But we were never required to take drum set. That always bothered me because that's the pinnacle of rhythmic subdivision. Rhythm just makes sense on a drum set. You have to deal with your entire body. So that's always been my first concept as a when I think about music.
You're relatively Midwestern with Akron, Ohio. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how jazz became your life.
So I grew up in the Sanctified Church, and it's a really particular kind of music, kind of gospel music that was driven by guitar. So the guitar tradition in that church goes back to the 40s and 50s, and there's just generations of guitarists. But the crazy thing is that they were heavily influenced by jazz musicians. So you can take each generation of guitarists in that church and just kind of cross-reference who was on the scene at that same time. So in the 40s they would listen to a lot of the swing guys, and even the swing guys that came before them, Charlie Christian, guys like that. And then in the 60s or 70s they were heavily influenced by Wes Montgomery and George Benson. So as a result, the music of the church was very similar to jazz. There's a walking bass line, and the drum beat was pretty much the exact same. It all swung. So when I heard my first jazz record, I just remember thinking, oh, this is just church music with a couple more chords. So
yeah.
It really lent itself to that. And I think when I heard Wes Montgomery and Jimmy Smith's dynamic duo, I was like, yeah, this is it for me. I want to do this for a living.
What was the first live jazz show you ever saw that blew you away?
Man, that's a really tough one, because not a whole lot of street ahead didn't really come through where I was at the time. Wow, that's a really tough one, man, because the first one I remember where I was like, oh, this is kind of nice, was believe it or not, Dave Koz. And he had a really funky band at the time. And I'm not huge into smooth jazz, but I just remember thinking man, his band is really funky. As far as a live show that blew me away, it was probably I know, Horace Silver when he came through the Tri-City Jazz Fest. Yeah,
that's wonderful.
I think that was the one.
Right on. You talked about being a father now, and there's a level of your world that kind of starts getting a little bit older and accelerated when you get into parenthood. And let me ask you this: if you have a dream tonight and you run into your younger self around the time that you were starting to gig and play, and you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, okay, I would say something that Russell Malone said to me. I would say don't focus on getting bigger, focus on getting better. That's the best piece of advice that I think I've gotten. You know, just as far as like don't focus on getting more popular. Just focus on getting better at what you do. So when the opportunity presents itself, you'll be actually prepared.
What about mentors? What have mentors taught you that you in turn are teaching younger players and your students?
Well, the best mentors for me have really taught me how to conduct myself with people, and the music kind of takes care of itself. So like I mentioned Russell Malone, he taught me a lot about conducting myself as a sideman and really watching good band leaders, how they operate, how they interact with their band members. So you know, when you become a leader, you know what type of leader you want to become because it's sideman experience. Christian McBride is the same way. He spent a lot of time as a sideman, so he's really a easy to work with because he understands the sideman experience, so he knows how to treat his band members.
You know, as a professional musician, every day you wake up, that's your job. What do you look forward to the most?
How the next note is going to make you feel. You never. That's something you really have to like live in the moment. You know, you can't really. You can try to plan out. You know, your solo, a concert, or plan out a concert, but you'll never know how it's going to unfold. You kind of have to be more of a gardener than an architect. You know.
If you could when we get off the phone and a jazz Delorean pulls up in front of your house and you can go to any show in the history of jazz, where are you going? And if you could talk to that musician after the show, who would it be?
Oh, Charlie Parker. There's no musician. Sorry about the dogs barking in the background.
Hey, man, it's COVID, man. It's all improv.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, definitely Charlie Parker. There's this solo he took on Lester Leaps In, and it's the most unbelievable solo. I mean, he just goes chorus after chorus, and really, I wouldn't. I think I'd be so dumbfounded I wouldn't be able to even ask any questions. I would just want to shake his hand, you know, and just say thank you. You know, because he really transformed just the language of jazz forever. I don't think there's been anyone, even including Coltrane. I mean, and Coltrane is a pillar of the music, but Charlie Parker just had that creative snap that has just gone unmatched, in my opinion. Yeah.
You know, when we do get back after COVID slows down on the stage, what do you hope both musician and the audience realizes about music and the power of it when we get back to it?
I hope they realize, well, both audience members and musicians, I hope they realize that music is not just an elective. You know, it's really a necessity for a healthy and productive society. You know, it enriches our lives, and it's really an essential part of a part of society. And I hope musicians realize that we need to take our craft seriously and charge accordingly because of how hard we work at our craft.
So, final question is this: everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your students, your fans, but you're the one living your life. Who do you think you are?
Man, I think I'm just I'm one of those vessels of wood and earth, man. You know, I feel like nobody is bigger than the music, but you know, I'm just trying to say what I have to say while I have my time here. I'm a musician. I'm a father. I'm an outdoorsman. Those are all really, really big parts of me, and I just hope that I can have a positive effect on as many people as possible.
Dan, thank you for taking some time out for Neon Jazz, man. I really appreciate you opening up.
Hey, anytime, man. Thanks for hitting me up. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Ohio, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Dan for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.